Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a city that breathes filth as easily as it exhales fog. You can almost taste it already, can't you? That metallic temps in the air, mixed with coal smoke and something far less pleasant like wet dog, rotting cabbage, and regret all stirred together. Welcome to Victorian London, a place so romanticized in novels and paintings. But here, in the damp darkness, you realize, nope, you wouldn't last a day. Seriously, you'd be on the first horse cart out of here by breakfast. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Love seeing this little community across the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You tug your coat tighter, though it's useless. The fog wraps around you like damp wool, seeping into your hair, your skin, even your bones. Street lamps flicker, faintly pathetic little gaslights with halos of sickly yellow that do more to highlight the fog than fight it. Shapes emerge and vanish like ghosts. A cart rattles past, its wheels caked in mud so thick you can smell the manure in it. The driver's face is hidden beneath a scarf, but you catch the glint of his eyes, tired, watchful, as if the streets themselves might rise up against him. A woman passes, stumbles past, shawl pulled over her head, clutching something. In her arms, you glimpse a tiny hand poke out. A child, swaddled tight, its face pale and still. Is it asleep? You hope so, you don't ask. No one asks here. The living pretend not to see the dying. It's easier that way. Somewhere nearby, a bell rings slow, heavy, mournful. You've heard church bells before, but this one isn't for worship, it's for the night soil cart, the collectors of human waste. They trundle down the street with barrels and shovels, scooping up what the city refuses to swallow, and even then they miss plenty. You sidestep a puddle that isn't water. The smell catches you mid-breath, and you gag. Just a little. London's streets are alive, but not in the way you'd like. Rats skitter along gutters, sleek and plump from endless feasts of garbage. One pauses to look at you, whiskers twitching, as if to say, new here, are you? You'll get used to a tour, you'll die first. Charming. Common event. The Great Fog of 1873. People still talk about it, how the fog got so thick you couldn't see your own feet. They say it swallowed entire carriages. Horses panicked, people wandered off bridges. But tonight's fog isn't that bad. This is just an ordinary Tuesday. You turn down an alley to escape the press of the main street. Bad idea. The darkness here is almost solid, broken only by the faint glow of a window high above. Inside, silhouettes move, two men hunched over a table, a deal being made, cards being played. Or maybe they're just dividing up the city's misery like slices of pie. Historians still debate how much of Victorian London's crime was driven by organized gangs versus desperate individuals. Either way, the result is the same. You don't linger. Your foot squelches in something soft. Don't look down, just don't. A voice calls out behind you, a child's voice, high and thin. Penny for bread. You turn and see her, maybe 6 years old, barefoot, dress in tatters. Her face is smudged with soot, but her eyes are startlingly bright, like tiny gas flames. You fumble for a coin, but she's gone before you can offer it, darting into the fog like a wisp of smoke. You keep walking, trying to shake the image. It's hard, Harder still when you realize that for every child you see, there are 10 you don't hidden in workhouses, under bridges, or beneath the Thames itself when luck runs out. There's a sound ahead, singing. At first, you think it might be something sweet, but as you draw closer, you realize it's a drunk, swaying in a doorway, belting out a ballad about love lost and gin found. He winks at you with one bloodshot eye, then collapses onto the cobbles. You sidestep him. Add that to your growing list of survival tips. Never step on a sleeping drunk. They bite. You emerge back onto a wider street, where the fog thins just enough for you to see St. Paul's Dome looming in the distance, pale and ghostly, beautiful in a way. The Victorians loved to talk about progress, empire, God's blessing upon their city. Standing here, feet damp, lungs burning, you can't help but think, maybe God took one look and decided to keep his distance. And still, life goes on. You hear the clip-clop of hooves, the chatter of voices in a dozen accents, the hiss of steam from a factory vent. Somewhere, someone laughs. Somewhere else, someone screams. This is London, a city of contrasts, of riches and rot, all wrapped in a blanket of fog. And you're just trying to make it through the night without losing yourself in it. You step out of the fog into a district where the streets are cleaner, or at least they try to be. The gutters here have less sludge and the gas lamps burn brighter, but you can still smell the city's breath underneath the perfume. This is where wealth lives, or pretends to, and tonight you're about to see just how much dirt can hide. Under silk, a carriage rolls past, lacquered wood gleaming, the horse's hooves polished to perfection. Through the window, you catch a glimpse of a woman draped in emerald velvet, her neck weighed down with diamonds big enough to feed a whole street for a month. Her face, powdered to porcelain, lips like a rose that's just a little too red to be real. You wonder how she can breathe under all that paint. Spoiler, she can't, not really. That corset laced so tight. It's less fashion and more medieval torture with ribbons. Fun fact, well, fun for you, not for her some. Women fainted so often they hired servants just to catch them. You follow the carriage up to a grand townhouse. Its door swings open to reveal a burst of light, music and warmth. Inside, a ballroom shimmers crystal, chandeliers, polished marble, floors, and 100 people dressed like they stepped out of a painting. The air smells of rosewater and roasted pheasant, with just a faint undertone of sweat and too many bodies crammed together. You slip inside, unnoticed in the swirl of silks and tails. A string quartet plays in the corner, their bows moving like clockwork. Couples glide across the floor in a waltz so precise it feels rehearsed, like even romance here has a schedule. You catch snippets of conversation as you pass. Terribly gauche of the Duchess. Profits from the East India Company, quite the windfall. Have you heard about the scandal with Lord Pembroke's niece? They talk in whispers, but their words cut like knives. Gossip here isn't just entertainment, it's currency, and everyone's rich in it. Common event, Queen Victoria's grand balls at Buckingham Palace. The papers raved about their opulence, gold everywhere. Hundreds of candles, guests sweating in layers of brocade while pretending not to. Less common fact, many of those gowns, no matter how dazzling, were rarely washed. The fabric was too delicate, they said. Translation, they stank. People literally doused themselves in perfume to mask it. Imagine standing shoulder to shoulder in a summer ballroom, breathing in heat, musk, and eau de rot. Romantic, right? You move toward a side. room, needing air. Here, away from the crowd, you find a different scene. Men clustered around a table heavy with cigars and brandy. The smoke is thick enough to make your eyes water. They talk business, railways, opium, colonies. They laugh, but it's not warm. Laughter, it's sharp, predatory. One man, his waistcoat straining over his belly, waves a paper in triumph. Profits up 20% from Bengal, he crows. You feel a chill despite the heat. Historians still debate how much the empire's wealth depended on exploitation abroad, but here, in this room, there's no debate. They know exactly where the money comes from. They just don't care. You leave before the smoke suffocates you. Back in the ballroom, a lady in pink catches your eye. She's sitting alone, fanning herself furiously, her face pale under the rouge. She meets your gaze for a heartbeat, then looks away, her smile faltering. You realize she's not just hot, she's exhausted. These dresses weigh pounds, the stays dig into ribs, and God forbid she admits it. Weakness isn't fashionable. A sudden commotion ripples through the room. A young woman has collapsed in the middle of the dance floor. 2 footmen rush to carry her out, as if it's nothing unusual. And it isn't. People barely pause before resuming their waltz. You can't help but think of the girl in the fog outside, barefoot and starving. Here, women drop from too tight corsets. Their children drop from hunger. Different worlds, same city. As the night deepens, you slip back into the street. The carriages are still lined up, waiting to whisk the privileged home 2 beds stuffed with goose feathers. You glance down at your boots, splattered with mud from the poorer district you came through. The contrast clings to you like the fog, impossible to shake. And as you walk away, the music fades, but the image stays. Silk gowns swirling over floors, scrubbed clean by unseen hands, while beyond these walls, the city's grime waits patiently. You leave the glow of the grand townhouse behind, and the fog welcomes you back like an old friend. It curls around your ankles as you head toward a different kind of gathering. The music of violins fades, replaced by the hum of voices, the bark of cellars, the clink of coins. The night market stretches before you, a narrow street alive with flickering lanterns and a chaos that feels almost comforting. At least here, everyone is honest about what they want. Survival. The air is thick with smells that fight for dominance: roasting chestnuts, cheap gin, damp wool, and somewhere, the unmistakable tang of raw fish gone just a bit too far. Stalls line both sides of the alley, their tables sagging under piles of goods. You see bolts of fabric, mismatched shoes, jars of questionable substances labeled as miracle cures, and, of course, food. So much food, if you can call it that. A man in a greasy apron waves you over to his stand. Best meat pies in London, he declares, though you notice he doesn't specify what kind of meat. You glance at the greyish filling oozing from one cracked crust and decide you're not that hungry. Fun fact, well, disturbing fact, many Victorian meat pies contained surprises, not just offcuts, but sometimes even rat meat, cheaper that way. You swallow hard and step back. A boy brushes past you, so close you feel the tug at your pocket. You catch his wrist before he can disappear into the crowd. He freezes, eyes wide, no older than 10. You release him with a sigh. He bolts without a word. Pickpockets are everywhere here, like fleas on a stray dog. The city pretends to crack down on them, but the truth, there are too many hungry mouths to stop. A shout erupts nearby, followed by the crash of a cart tipping over. A woman wails as her basket of eels writhes across the cobblestones. Yes, eels. Londoners love them, stewed, jellied, you name it. You're tempted to laugh, but the sight of her scrambling to gather her livelihood while others snatch what they can sobers you quickly. Common event, the infamous Billingsgate fish market, where scenes like this played out daily, loud, frantic, reeking. Of the Thames, you press on, deeper into the market, where the lanterns grow dimmer and the goods. Stranger, a man in a ragged coat opens one side of it to reveal rows of watches. Genuine, he whispers, though you're fairly sure half of them were stolen tonight. Another vendor calls you closer to inspect jars of leeches, claiming they can cure anything from headaches to heartbreak. You decline politely. Somewhere above, a window slams shut. A woman's laughter drifts down, followed by a man's curse. Deals are being made in every shadow goods, favors, bodies. This is London's other ballroom. No chandeliers, no vi- just the raw, unpolished rhythm of need. You pause at a stall selling bookstin, dog-eared, some missing covers. The seller, a wiry man with ink-stained fingers, notices your curiosity. Can't read, can you? He says, not unkindly. You shake your head, and he chuckles softly. Most can't. Waste of time, they say. But me, I think words keep us alive. Lesser-known fact. Literacy among London's poor was far lower than you might think. Many couldn't read street signs, let alone books. As you move on, you catch sight of a constable at the far end of the street. He's not here to help. He's here to collect his cut. The pickpockets scatter at his approach, vanishing like smoke. He pockets a coin from a fishmonger and moves on. You can't help but wonder how much of this city runs on quiet corruption. Historians still debate whether Victorian policing reduced crime or simply organized it. Looking at this scene, you have your answer. You duck into a narrow side alley to catch your breath. It's quieter here, but not empty. A figure leans against the wall, watching you. When you meet his eyes, he smiles too wide, too friendly. Looking for something, he asks. You shake your head quickly and back away. Whatever he's selling, you don't want it. Returning to the main market, you realize the night has grown late. The crowd thins, stalls close, lanterns dim one by one. The city exhales, leaving behind only scraps, fish guts, trampled bread, and a few souls still searching for what they've lost. You step over a puddle reflecting the last flicker of light and head back into the fog. The sounds of the market fade, but its energy lingers, buzzing under your skin. Above the rooftops, you glimpse smoke rising from a distant chimney, thicker, darker than the rest. You're heading there next. Whether you want to or not, the place where survival turns into chains. The market's last lantern fades behind you, and the fog guides you onward, like a pale, silent usher. The air feels heavier here, colder somehow, and soon you see it, a hulking brick building squatting at the edge of the street. No sign announces what it is, none is needed. The high, barred windows and the stench of boiled cabbage give it away. This is the Workhouse. You hesitate at the iron gate, half expecting it to groan open by itself, but a thin man in a threadbare uniform unlatches it without a word. His eyes slide over you like you're just another problem to be filed away. Inside, the world shifts. The sounds of the city shouting hawkers, rumbling carts vanish, replaced by something quieter yet far more oppressive, the clatter of tools, the shuffle of feet, the low murmur of exhaustion. You step into a cavernous hall lined with long tables. Rows of men sit hunched over, breaking stones, sorting rags, pounding fibers. Their faces are grey, as if the building has drained them of all colour. One looks up briefly, eyes hollow, before returning to his task. No one speaks above a whisper here. Words feel dangerous, like sparks in a room soaked with oil. A woman leads you to another section women's work. They sew coarse garments under dim light, fingers raw and bleeding. One young girl, maybe 12, pricks herself with the needle and flinches, but doesn't cry out. She just sucks the blood away and keeps going. You wonder how long she's been here. Fun fact, well, fun only in that bleak Victorian way families entering the workhouse were often separated at the door. Husbands one way, wives another, children divided among them. Sometimes they never saw each other again. The smell. Here is a mix of sweat, mildew, and overcooked gruel. Your stomach clenches at the thought of eating it, but for these people, it's survival. A thin boy carrying a tray of bowls stumbles past you, and one spills. He freezes, waiting. A tall overseer appears like a shadow. No shouting, no beating, just a long, cold stare that sends the boy trembling as he scrambles to clean up. Somehow, that silence feels worse than violence. Common event. The Poor Law of 1834. It made these places the last resort for the desperate, designed less to help than to deter. The logic was simple. Make life inside so miserable that people would do anything to avoid it. Standing here, you can confirm. Mission accomplished. You pass into the dormitory, a vast room lined with narrow beds, each just a wooden frame and a thin sack of straw. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies. Some of the occupants lie awake, staring at the ceiling. Others whisper softly to each other, fragments of hope or memory. Near the far wall, an old man hums a lullaby to himself, voice cracking. On every note, you stop to listen, and in that moment, the workhouse feels less like a place and more like a trap that feeds on human will. You think of the ballroom you left earlier, the glittering gowns, the music, the laughter. That world might as well be another planet. Here, even dreams seem rationed. Historians still debate whether workhouses truly alleviated poverty or simply punished it. Looking around, the answer feels obvious. A bell rings, sharp, final. Lights dim, everyone files to their beds in silence. You remain standing, unsure if you're meant to leave or stay. A woman passes by, her eyes meeting yours for just a moment. In them, you see neither anger nor despair, just emptiness. It chills you more than any scream could. You slip back outside, the iron gate closing softly behind you. The fog greets you once again, wrapping you in its damp embrace. Somewhere in the distance, a factory whistle shrieks, long and low. You follow the sound, because where there's a whistle here, there's smoke. And where there's smoke, there's another story waiting. The factory whistle fades behind you, but the echo of it lingers, like a ghost in the fog. Your feet carry you downhill, away from the looming bulk of the workhouse, into streets that feel narrower, meaner. Here, the buildings lean in close, their upper floors almost touching, as if conspiring to block out the light. The air smells of rotting vegetables, coal smoke, and something metallic blood, maybe. Though you can't be sure, you hear them before you see them. Small voices, thin and sharp as broken glass. You round a corner, and there they are, children, dozens of them, darting between piles of refuse. Some dig with sticks through heaps of ash and bones from last night's market, hoping for scraps. Others simply crouch, fingers raw, picking through mud for anything edible or sellable. A little boy lifts a crust of bread from the gutter, wipes it once on his sleeve, and bites. His eyes meet yours, briefly, defiant, as if daring you to judge him. You don't. How could you? Above you, in some grand house, beyond these alleys, a piano is playing a waltz, faint but unmistakable. You can almost see the glittering chandelier. Again, hear the polite laughter of people who will never walk these streets. This city lives two lives at once, one gorging itself, the other starving. A girl approaches you, maybe 8 years old, with hair so matted it could be a bird's nest. She holds out a tin cup. "A penny, sir," she whispers. Her voice is barely there, like she's afraid of using it up. You reach into your pocket, but when you look up, she's gone. Vanished into the maze of alleyways. These children move like shadows. Common event. The Irish famine migration of the 1840s. Thousands fled to London seeking survival, only to find themselves crammed into slums like this. Whole families lived in single rooms, often with no heat, no plumbing, and no hope. Lesser-known fact, some of these children weren't truly homeless. They had homes, if you could call them that. Tiny rooms rented by the hour, shared by strangers, sometimes with just a rope stretched across for people to sleep leaning against. Imagine resting on a rope because you can't afford a bed. Victorian innovation at its finest. You step over a man slumped in a doorway. His skin is pale, lips tinged blue. Is he sleeping, or is this his final rest? No one stops to check. A woman passes by carrying a bucket of water. She splashes it near him to clear a path, but doesn't look at his face. It's not cruelty. It's survival. In a place where death is common, you learn to keep walking. You notice a group of boys near a lamppost, huddled around a makeshift fire in a tin can. They're swapping stories, laughing even, though the sound is brittle. One mimics a gentleman's accent, prancing about with exaggerated bows. The others giggle until a constable appears at the end of the street. In an instant, they scatter, laughter replaced by silence. The fire dies alone in the gutter. You continue onward, the cobblestones slick beneath your boots. A cart rumbles past, piled high with bread bound for some wealthy household. You catch a whiff of it, warm, yeasty, maddening. Your stomach growls in sympathy with the emptiness around you. One of the children chases after the cart, stumbling, but a man with a whip chases him off. The bread rolls on. Historians still debate whether Victorian London truly tried to address its hunger problem or merely hid it from view. Walking here, it feels like the latter. These streets are tucked just far enough from the main roads that visitors can pretend they don't exist, out of sight, out of conscience. A church bell rings somewhere far off, solemn and low. Maybe it's calling the faithful to evening service, or maybe it's tolling for another soul lost. You glance up, and for the first time tonight, you see stars peeking through the fog. They look almost kind, distant witnesses to the misery. Below, you turn a corner and find yourself facing a set of gatestall, wrought iron, with smoke rising beyond them. The sound of hammers rings faintly in the air, steady and unrelenting. Factories, the next step in this city story. You take a breath, tasting soot even before you enter, and push forward into the heat and darkness beyond. You leave the streets of hunger behind. The scent of bread from the wealthier squares still lingers in your nose, but now it's smothered by something else: soil, coal, smoke, and fear. The road to the factories feels like walking into a mouth that's about to swallow you whole. You touch the iron gate at the entrance. It's cold, sticky with rust, like the city itself is sweating. Inside, the noise strikes first. Hammers, chains, the hiss of steam. But the sound that stays with you isn't loud at all. It's the small things, the ragged coughs, the muffled groans, the uneven breaths of chests far too small for such labor. You turn, and you see them. Children, they single quotes, so tiny that the work clothes, cut down as small as possible, still hang like sacks on their bone-thin frames. A boy, maybe 7, kneels by a spinning wheel, wiping grease from the gears with a rag blackened long ago. "Don't stop the machine," a foreman's voice barks from above. The boy glances up at you just once, and his eyes are black, like coal, empty of childhood, holding only shadows. You slow your steps, not to startle them more, maybe because your own legs feel suddenly heavier. A little girl struggles past, dragging a spool of thread nearly her own size. Her palms are calloused, nails rimmed with grime, but when she catches you looking, she flashes a quick smile. A smile that says, "We're still alive, and maybe, in this place, that's enough to be proud of." People talk about this, of course. They nod knowingly when they mention that Victorian children worked in factories, as if it's just another fact of life, like rain in London. They had to, they'll say, families were poor. But here, watching a child's hand hover inches from spinning steel, those words collapse into nothing. A narrow window draws your eye. Through it, you glimpse the underfloor crawlspace. Down there, boys crawl on their bellies in the darkness, snatching scraps of cloth before the machines eat them. You feel your own chest tighten as you watch one wriggle deeper, ribs moving like bellows. Some never crawl back out. You realize they vanish into the machine's rhythm, swallowed whole. No one speaks of them except on payroll sheets marked "Replacement needed." A boy of about 10 scrambles from beneath the floor, clutching his arm, purple and swollen. The foreman strides over, yanks the limb, checks for a break. "Not broken. Good." "Back in," he says, pushing the boy toward the crawl space. You want to shout, to tear the machines apart with your hands, but your voice dies in your throat. This city doesn't hear screams. It only hears engines. You follow a dim corridor, its walls scratched with marks lines counting days, 10, 20, 40, and then they stop. You don't ask why. Some things answer themselves. A whisper brushes your ear, or maybe it's just the thought forming on its own. Progress, they call this progress. You look up at the factory roof, where chimneys belch black smoke into the grey sky. All that hunger from the streets has turned into labor here. A new form of starvation, one that eats the body slowly while the world applauds. You take one last glance back. Those small eyes don't close, not even when they blink. The machines roar on, but beneath the clatter you now hear it, clearly, the coughing, the fire-consuming air itself. And you walk on into smoke and soot, where even breathing will feel like swallowing knives. You step out of the factory, and for a moment you expect aerial air, the kind that fills your lungs and doesn't taste of iron. But no, the first breath you take rasps your throat. You cough softly, as though embarrassed to admit defeat, and glance up. The sky is gone. Or rather, it's been replaced by a ceiling of black smoke, roiling and restless like a living thing. Chimneys line the horizon, dozens, maybe hundreds, each vomiting darkness into the air. The city calls this progress. Your lungs disagree. You follow a narrow street where the cobblestones are no longer grey but stained and oily black. It clings to everything: boots, skirts, eyelashes. Even the lamplight at midday looks dim, as though the soot itself swallows brightness whole. A woman passes you, balancing a basket of laundry on her hip. White linens, not anymore. They're grey before she even reaches the corner. She sighs, mutters under her breath about washing them twice a day, though they never look clean. She doesn't stop walking, no one does. To linger is to notice, and noticing is dangerous here. You pause at a riverbank, or what should be a riverbank. The water is thick, black, sluggish as tar. Dead fish float belly up, and on the far side, children toss stones that vanish with a dull plop. The famous Thames. People boast about it, still the great artery of London, lifeblood of commerce. You smile faintly at that. If this is lifeblood, the city is already dead and just doesn't know it yet. A cart rattles past, wheels squealing under its load of coal. The driver, face smeared dark as the cargo, cracks his whip lazily. He catches your eye for a second and shrugs, as if to say, "What choice do we have?" You watch him disappear into the fog of smoke, a ghost made of flesh and fatigue. You wander deeper to the foundries. Here, the heat pushes against your skin, sticky and suffocating. Men, stripped to the waist, shovel coal into furnaces that glow white-hot. Their muscles gleam with sweat, though by now, sweat is indistinguishable from soot. One man wipes his brow, leaving a pale streak like war paint. He laughs when he sees you notice. "Cleaner than most," he says, voice hoarse. "They call this the Industrial Revolution, a grand turning point of civilization." You can almost hear the speeches, the polished words in Parliament about prosperity and progress. Meanwhile, here a man coughs blood into his palm, glances at it, then goes back to work. He has a family to feed. That's progress too, in its own way. Above the roar of the furnaces, you catch another sound, something lighter, rhythmic. You look up to see flakes of ash drifting down like black snow. Children nearby giggle, trying to catch them on their tongues. You almost laugh, too, until you notice the rash around one boy's mouth, the way he scratches his skin raw. Later, you'll hear the word chimney sweep's cancer. You'll learn it blooms in boys who spend their childhoods crawling through flues, their lungs and skin lined with soot. But for now, you just keep watching the black snow fall. You move on, past endless rows of identical houses, their bricks darkened to near black. You wonder what the sun looks like here. Does it ever shine, or has it given up, like so many others? At last, you reach a small hill, one of the few places not yet swallowed by brick and smoke. You look back, the city stretches wide, its chimneys like fingers clawing at the sky. Somewhere behind you, a bell tolls faintly, though you can't see the church through the haze. You shiver, though it isn't cold. Maybe it's the thought that this darkness isn't just Abuvitz inside, creeping into bloodstreams, bones, and futures. You think of the factory children, their tiny coughs joining the city's chorus, and you realize this is just another link in the chain. Ahead lies a world of parlors and chandeliers, of whispered deals behind closed doors, secrets wrapped in silk, hidden behind polished doors. You take a breath or try to step forward into drawing rooms and secrets where the dirt doesn't vanish. It just wears perfume. The night hums differently here. Gone is the choking smoke of the factories. Gone is the suffocating velvet of the drawing rooms. In its place, light, hundreds of lanterns bobbing like fireflies, suspended from wrought iron arches and trees trimmed to impossible perfection. You step through the gates, and the world changes. Music greets you first, waltz spilling from a hidden orchestra, the kind of melody that insists your feet must move, even if your heart hesitates. Perfume follows, thick as fog, mingling roses, and sweat, and something faintly metallic you can't name. People float past in silks and satins, masks hiding half their faces. Men in top hats, women in feathers, all pretending to be anyone but themselves. You're not sure if they've come here to escape the world or to devour it. Maybe both. A couple twirls near you, her laughter high and bright, like glass about to crack. He whispers something into her ear, and she presses closer. You look again, his wedding ring gleams in the lantern light. Her hand brushes his pocket, quick, practiced. When she spins away, the ring remains. But his watch does not. A waiter appears at your side, tray of champagne balanced effortlessly. His smile is courteous, but his eyes sharp, assessing, never stop moving. He knows this place feeds more than appetites. He also knows who pays him well to keep certain secrets. Deeper into the gardens, the music fades just enough for whispers to grow louder. Deals are struck beneath rose arbors. A politician leans close to a merchant, their voices low, words carried off by the breeze. Another man wealthy, by his dress passes an envelope to a woman in a crimson mask. She slips it into her bodice, without breaking her smile. And then there are the performers. You follow a crowd to a small stage where acrobats in glittering costumes twist in impossible shapes above your head. The audience gasps, applauds, but you notice something they don't or choose not to. One of the performers hesitates at the top of her climb, just for a moment. Her face is pale, lips tight. The fall from this height would kill her. But the music swells, and she leaps, and the crowd cheers as though danger were just another act. You find yourself wandering toward the farthest edge of the gardens, where the lanterns thin and the laughter softens. Here you catch a glimpse of something most visitors never see. A gate, discreet and guarded. Beyond it, shadows of carriages wait. The guests who disappear through here do not return until dawn. And sometimes not at all. You stand in the quiet for a moment, listening. Behind you, pleasure, roars music, laughter, clinking glasses. Ahead, silence, save for the rustle of leaves and the faint scrape of wheels. The garden, it seems, has two faces. There's an unspoken truth here. These gardens bloom on desperation. The maids who scrub the marble fountains earn pennies. The seamstresses who sew these dazzling gowns often work by candlelight until their fingers bleed. The city feeds this place, even as it starves itself. But no one here speaks of that. Why? Ruin the illusion. A burst of fireworks startles you. The sky explodes in gold and crimson, reflected in every champagne glass. Cheers erupt. For a moment, everyone forgets themselves. Lovers kiss, rivals toast, strangers laugh together. You almost believe in it, almost. But as the last spark fades, you feel the night shift again. Behind the glow lies danger, patient and hungry. A pickpocket brushes too close. A man stumbles into the hedge, unmoving. And somewhere in the darkness, a scream is quickly swallowed by music. You've seen enough. The gardens are beautiful, yes, but beauty here is just another mask. You turn away, slipping back through the gates, leaving the lanterns to their lies. The city greets you like a slap of cold air. In the distance, you hear something else entirely. The clang of iron gates, the heavy tread of boots, the murmurs of those who have nothing left. You head toward it, because next you're walking into crime and punishment, where the city's sins are laid bare, and mercy is a luxury no one can afford. Under the narrow arch of a soot-blackened alley, you pause. The air here carries a strange cocktail of coal smoke, damp stone, and the faint copper temps of old blood. You breathe in slowly, because apparently you enjoy suffering. The city hums. Around you, restless and grim, like a stray dog that's learned to bite before being beaten. Somewhere ahead, a shout-sharp, guttural cuts through the air, followed by the dull thud of flesh on flesh. Welcome to the part of London where law and order is less about justice and more about theatre. You take a step forward, boots brushing against puddles that refuse to dry even when the sun does bother to appear. The crowd is already forming around. The fight. To men, their faces mottled with gin and fury, grapple in the filth. One swings wildly, missing completely and stumbling into a barrel of rotting fish. The smell intensifies. The other laughs, a low, guttural sound, before slamming his fist into the first man's jaw. The crowd cheers. Ah, civic entertainment. At its finest. A constable finally appears, puffed up in his blue coat, brass buttons shining like a desperate plea for respect. He wades through the spectators, truncheon raised, swinging it with the practiced indifference of someone who knows. No one here will truly be helped. The men are dragged apart, one bleeding from his mouth, the other muttering curses. They'll likely see each other again tomorrow, maybe at the pub, maybe at the gallows. You'd be surprised how often those overlap. The city loves its punishments, almost as much as it loves its sins. You follow the trickle of onlookers toward the square where today's grand performance awaits. The scaffold looms ahead, wooden beams slick from last night's rain. Above, a single rope sways gently, hypnotic, like a cradle for the condemned. People jostle for position, eager to see the show. Housewives with baskets of bread elbow their way forward. Apprentices climb lampposts for a better view. Children wriggle through legs to stand at the front, eyes wide and unblinking. Lovely family outing, isn't it? A drum roll begins. Not a metaphorical one, an actual boy with a snare drum, barely 12, pale beneath the grime on his cheeks. He beats the rhythm of fate with a detached air, as if to say, "This isn't my first corpse." And he's right. It isn't. Executions are so common they've practically replaced sermons for moral instruction. The condemned man appears, escorted by 2 warders. His shirt is clean but thin, his face hollowed by weeks in Newgate's damp cells. He stumbles, slightly on the steps, catching himself on the rail, and for a moment you think you see a flicker of defiance in his eyes. Then the gears start. The crowd calls him thief, murderer, scum, though many here have stolen a loaf or thrown a punch. In anger, hypocrisy pairs well with bloodsport, a lesser-known detail. Though few here care, the rope he faces has likely done this before. Gallows ropes are expensive, and hangmen are thrifty. They're soaked in tallow to prevent fraying, reused until they snap. Sometimes they do. Imagine the cheer that goes up when that happens. Death, delayed, is so deliciously entertaining. The priest mumbles a prayer, mostly ignored. The hangman, smelling of ale, adjusts the noose with a craftsman's touch. The condemned man's lips move silently, perhaps a prayer, perhaps a curse, perhaps just trying to remember the warmth of sunlight. The hood drops over his head. The crowd leans forward as one organism. The trapdoor falls. The body jerks violently, then hangs still. Applause erupts, not polite, not restrained, but roaring. A woman laughs too loudly. A man wipes away a tear he'll deny later. The drummer stops. The square empties slowly, leaving only the corpse swinging gently in the breeze. A warning or a promise, depending on who's looking. You turn away. Behind you, life resumes as if nothing happened. The butcher hawks his meat again. Calls out for customers. Somewhere, another alley hosts another crime, feeding the cycle. Justice here isn't blind, it's drunk, tired, and a little too fond of applause as you walk on, past the lingering smell of sweat and death, past the walls of Newgate that hold more stories than any book. You wonder how a city so obsessed with punishment manages to keep birthing so much crime. Then again, maybe you shouldn't wonder too hard. Some shadows are cast not by criminals, but by the very institutions claiming to fight them, and you can feel those shadows stretching further. Beyond this street, beyond this city, beyond the grey horizon, you stand on the Thames embankment, the river sluggish under the weight of filth and empire. Barges groan as they unload crates stamped with exotic Mark's coffee, sugar, indigo, tea-sweet symbols of faraway lands you'll likely never see, except in the fine china teacup of a London drawing room. You inhale the air, thick with coal smoke and the faint spice of cinnamon. How charming, really, to sip wealth while never tasting the blood that buys it. A man in a frock coat strolls past, his gait jaunty, his cane tapping in time to his self-satisfaction. He has never been to Bengal, yet his fortune bleeds from it. Behind him, a boy in rags stares longingly at a spilled sugar crate. He snatches a lump and is promptly cuffed by a dog. Sweetness, it seems, is reserved for those who can pay. You wander through the bustling docks. Sailors shout in a dozen languages. Ropes creak. Rats scurry over grain sacks. Somewhere, a whip cracks not here, but in your imagination, carried. Across oceans from plantations in Jamaica, cotton fields in India, diamond mines in South Africa. London hums with borrowed suffering, and the rhythm is intoxicating. They tell you the empire is a civilizing force. Isn't that quaint? Ships bring back tales of noble conquest, of taming savages, of bringing light to dark places. Yet here, on the river, you see the truth in the hollow eyes of sailors who've seen cargo holds packed tighter than barrels of rum, not with goods, but with bodies. They whisper in taverns about voyages where the dead were tossed overboard like spoilt cargo. Historians still debate whether profit or morality steered Britain's ships. You have your guess. You turn into the city proper, following the trail of empire's spoils. The West End glitters. Gas lamps glow in front of theatres where exotic operas play. Boutiques display silks from India. Ladies glide past in gowns dyed with cochineal red, tiny insects crushed by the millions for their beauty. A lady fans herself with peacock feathers, laughing lightly at a joke about the colonies. The feathers once shimmered on a bird in a jungle she cannot name. Step into a coffee house. The air is rich with roasted beans and self-improvement. Merchants huddle at tables, whispering over ledgers fat with overseas profits. On the wall hangs a map of the world, pink patches marking British rule. One man jabs a finger at Africa, declaring, "There's opportunity there," as though opportunity were a vein to be mined, a throat to be cut. Another raises his cup too. Progress. The coffee is bitter, though not as bitter as the lives ground to make it. A lesser-known fact slips in here, almost shy. The tea you sip so delicately may have been grown by hands forced to kneel for hours, plucking leaves until their fingers bled in fields owned by men who never touched soil. The empire runs on invisible labor, like a stage trick. Now you see it, now you don't. And in London, applause drowns out the screams. Move east toward the poorer districts. Dock laborers cough up coal dust. Children play in gutters lined with molasses spills from the West Indies. They may never own the products they help unload, but they are bound to them all the same. A man mutters about prices rising, unaware that wars fought thousands of miles away inflate his bread. The empire gives and takes, but mostly takes. Night falls. The city does not sleep. It glows. Candlelight flickers in mansions built on profits. From sugar and opium. Somewhere a gentleman toasts queen and country. Never mind that his fortune reeks of famine. Somewhere else, a missionary writes home about saving souls, blind to the chains his letters justify. The darkness of empire is not absence of light. It is light so bright it blinds you to the shadow it casts. You pause on a quiet street. Above you, the Union Jack flutters proudly, its edges catching moonlight. It looks almost beautiful, almost, but you can't help noticing how the wind makes it whisper soft, insistent, like voices carried from faraway graves. The ballroom is ablaze of gold and candlelight, chandeliers dripping like frozen waterfalls overhead. You step inside, the warmth almost oppressive after the damp night outside. Music swells violins, oboes, a waltz that glides on polished marble. Everywhere there is silk, satin, lace. Diamonds wink at throats and wrists as if mocking those who dig them from the earth. You are here in the heart of refinement, where love is declared in whispers and hypocrisy dances in plain sight. A gentleman bows low to a lady whose fan flutters like a trapped bird. Their eyes meet, linger, then dart away as her husband approaches, oblivious or perhaps not. You catch a smile playing on his lips, one that says he's aware but doesn't care, so long as appearances hold. Love here is performance, as choreographed as the quadrille, each step precise, each partner interchangeable. You almost want to applaud. In the corner, a poet leans close to a patroness, murmuring verses that make her blush. She funds his work, he fuels her vanity. Outside these walls, their romance would crumble beneath the weight of poverty and judgment. But here, in the golden bubble, it thrives like a hothouse flower, beautiful and unnatural. You drift toward the refreshment table. Crystal glasses brim with champagne, each bubble a tiny lie. You overhear a conversation, a young woman insisting. She will marry for love, her aunt tutting that love without money is vulgar. Affection grows, the aunt says, but fortune must already be present. You wonder if she believes this or simply needs to. Beyond these bright rooms, hypocrisy seeps into every brick of the city. In Mayfair, lords campaign for morality. Acts while frequenting brothels in St. Giles. One common evening sight. Carriages waiting discreetly at midnight. Curtains drawn, carrying men of stature to pleasures they publicly condemn. Some brothels even advertise virtuous company girls dressed as schoolchildren, to satisfy the tastes of those who legislate against vice. Historians still argue over whether Victorian morality was a shield or a sword. Standing here, you suspect it was both. A gentleman passes you, smelling of expensive cologne, his hands clean, manicured. He boasts of funding missions to save women abroad. His own servant girl flinches when he enters a room. The contrast is almost artful in its cruelty. You step out briefly to the garden. Lanterns glow among the hedges. Roses climb trellises, their scent cloying. A couple stands in the shadows, locked in a kiss that is neither secret nor acknowledged. Nearby, a maid carries a tray of empty glasses back inside, head bowed to avoid seeing what she cannot afford to speak of. Love and hypocrisy share the same breath here, fragrant and suffocating. A lesser-known truth presses itself into your ear like gossip. Many of these grand marriages are not marriages at all, but contracts titles, traded for dowries, reputations, for influence. Some brides arrive at the altar trembling, not from joy, but from the weight of family debts tied to their corseted waists. And still, the newspapers print their portraits, smiling under headlines of society's most fortunate. Matches. You hear laughter from the ballroom, high and brittle, like glass about to shatter. The music swells again, faster this time, as if to drown out whatever truths might leak through. Walk back inside. A preacher is speaking to a cluster of ladies, extolling the virtues of chastity. You recall seeing him earlier, slipping a coin to a streetwalker at the edge of the docks. His words are as polished as his boots. The ladies nod, sipping champagne as though morality were a refreshment to be taken lightly in the far corner. An artist unveils a portrait of a countess. Her painted gaze is soft, pure. You saw her minutes ago, eyes sharp as cut glass as she maneuvered a political favor from a lord. She approaches the painting, exclaims how the artist has captured her true self. You almost laugh, but the sound would ruin the illusion. The night wears on. Guests grow flushed, laughter looser, propriety thinner. In the small hours, carriages will depart, lovers will part with practiced farewells, and the city will wake to headlines about virtue and progress. None will mention the maid dismissed for catching a lord's eye, the factory girl who sells herself to survive, the child born from a union never acknowledged, and you, standing among it all, feel the weight of the room pressing in, not just the heat of bodies and candles, but the suffocating knowledge that here, even love is another commodity, dressed in lace and perfumed to hide the rot. You linger one moment longer, letting the music wash over you. It is lovely, undeniably so. Beauty has that power to hide what festers beneath. But listen closely, beneath the waltz, and you might hear the faintest sob from somewhere beyond these walls, carried on the night air like a secret no one dares admit. ChatGPT said, you drift through a city that hums like a restless machine. Factories belch smoke into a sky already bruised with soot, and the air tastes faintly of iron and ash. You feel it coat your tongue, cling to your clothes. Somewhere behind you, a bell clangs shift change, and a stream of workers' faces grey with fatigue shuffle past, heads bowed, eyes hollow. This is progress. They say. You almost laugh, quietly, so no one hears. The streets themselves seem alive, pulsing with relentless motion. Carriages rattle over cobblestones, wheels slick with horse manure and oil. You step carefully, but not carefully enough. There's no way to leave these streets unstained. Around a corner, you catch sight of a familiar sight by now. A child, no more than 8, carrying a bucket too heavy for her thin arms. She stumbles, and the contents thick, black, chemical waste splash onto her bare feet. She winces, but says nothing, just wipes her cheek with a dirty sleeve and keeps going. You think about how she probably won't live to see 20. And still, she works, because the machines must not stop. Inside one of those massive mills, The roar is deafening, even from outside. Through a cracked window, you glimpse a row of women seated at spinning frames, fingers flying so fast they blur. Every so often, a sharp cry cuts through the din, someone's hand caught where it shouldn't be. The overseer barely looks up. There are always more hands to replace the broken ones. Here's something few talk about. Some mill owners keep a secret stock of orphans' children pulled from workhouses and trained, like livestock, replace injured laborers on short notice. They are property, not people. Not that anyone would admit it. Progress brings marvels too, of course. They show off new inventions in grand exhibitions, dazzling contraptions of steel and light. You stand before one now, a locomotive, sleek and powerful, surrounded by well-dressed spectators applauding as though salvation itself has arrived. The future is here, someone declares. You want to ask if the future smells like burning flesh, because just last week one of these engines exploded, killing 6 men in an instant. But you don't. You smile faintly, as though charmed, and slip away. On a quieter street, you pause at a hospital. Inside, surgeons work tirelessly under gaslight, their white aprons long since stained red. They are proud of their progress, their miracles of modern science. You watch as one performs a leg amputation with a hacksaw. The patient is awake, screaming into a leather strap. No antiseptic, no anesthetic, just speed and a steady hand. He survives, maybe, or maybe not. Historians still argue whether the city's death toll truly decreased with these advancements, or whether the statistics were, shall we say, enthusiastically adjusted. Numbers can be so flexible when reputation is on the line. The city gleams with new iron bridges, wider streets, brighter lamps. It looks magnificent at dusk, the glow hiding grime, the illusion of civility stretching thin across every surface. People stroll these avenues, marveling at progress, ignoring the bodies carted off in the early hours, sickness, disease, starvation, conveniently invisible. You walk among them, a shadow among shadows, wondering how much blood a city can swallow before it chokes, and yet beneath the smoke, beneath the rot, you feel a strange pull forward. You know you will keep walking, because this city doesn't stop. Not for you, not for anyone. Under the gaslight's one glow, you move through streets that seem to exhale. The clatter and roar of the day has thinned to a sparse patter-boot. On cobblestones, a carriage wheel whining somewhere distant. London at night is not asleep. It simply hides its teeth better. You can almost feel the day's grime still clinging to the air, as if soot and sweat refuse to surrender just because the sun has gone. A lamplighter lingers ahead, taper in hand, coaxing a stubborn flame into life. His fingers are blackened, his jacket patched beyond recognition. He doesn't look up at you, Fudu, at this hour, but you catch his muttered curse when the flame sputters. Such a simple scene, you think, but in truth, lamplighters like him are on their way out. Electric light will soon erase them, and with them, the eerie beauty of flames trembling in fog. Progress, remember, it has no patience for sentimentality. Near Covent Garden, you find an open tavern door, laughter and off-key singing spilling into the street. Inside, dock workers raise mugs in exhausted celebration of another shift survived. Their merriment is rough, tinged with desperation. One man dances on the table, swaying as if gravity itself is half-hearted tonight. A woman in a faded red dress collects coins from patrons, her smile as practiced as a stage act. She doesn't look happy, but she looks convincing in here. That's enough. A horse clops by outside, pulling a black lacquered carriage. You've seen its kind in daylight, ferrying the wealthy between drawing rooms and operas. At night, it serves a different purpose, ferrying bodies from the hospital to the morgue. Few notice, fewer care. A lesser-known truth: London's dead do not all rest in hallowed ground. Many are buried in unmarked pits under parks you might stroll through by day. Pleasant thought, isn't it? You wander on, past St. Martin-in-Fields, where a lone violinist plays to no audience. The notes float fragile in the mist, almost mocking. The city's pretense of refinement. By the Thames, water laps lazily at the embankment, carrying the stench of refuse and rot. A rat skitters across your path, bold in its hunger. You think of how this river so vital, so celebrated is, also. London's sewer. And yet, tomorrow morning, someone will boast of the empire's might while this same tide sloshes beneath their feet. Thick with waste, a policeman emerges from a shadowed doorway, tapping his truncheon against his palm. His eyes sweep you once, dismiss you as neither threat nor profit, and he melts back into darkness. Safety is always selective here. It simply depends on which side of the ledger you exist. Somewhere a church bell tolls midnight. Its sound is not comforting. Instead, it feels like a reminder that the city never really sleeps. It merely shifts masks. Windows shutter, footsteps fade. But behind walls, behind curtains, bargains are struck, secrets are kept, and sins are committed just as industriously as by day. You think of the workers whose labor fueled this day's wealth, of colonies bled dry so this city could shine. The silence of night is not peace, is complicity. The fog thickens, softening edges, making everything look almost tender, almost forgiving. Almost you walk through it, feeling the weight of unseen eyes. Perhaps they are living, perhaps not. London holds more ghosts than anyone admits. Some are said to linger at places like Newgate, where gallows once stood, restless because justice here was never truly just. Others are quieter, content to haunt only memory. Either way, you can't help but sense them, as if the very stones remember what the living prefer to forget. Ahead, a candle burns faintly in a window, stubborn against the darkness. You pause, watching its tiny flame fight the night. It will lose, of course, they always do. And yet, for a moment, you feel the fragile courage of that light. And it almost makes you believe the city could be more than this. Almost, the night deepens. You keep walking. The streets narrow. The silence grows heavier. You wonder if morning will bring change, or simply another mask over the same face. The city has vanished into silence, but you remain, lingering on the edge of sleep. Your eyes flutter shut as you feel the air shift a breath, not quite your own, cool and gentle across your skin. You open them again, just for a moment, and see nothing. Of course, you see nothing. Shadows never show themselves when you ask politely. The streets behind you have melted into fog. The river is only a soft hum in the distance. And here you are alone, or at least you pretend you are. But you sense them, the unseen, the forgotten that is a creak on the cobblestone, a step that does not echo yours, a wisp of lavender, faint and fleeting, as if someone just passed you wearing a perfume last in fashion a century ago. You turn slowly, softly, and again, nothing. Isn't it always nothing? You begin to walk, though you cannot say where to. Past an abandoned almshouse, its windows gaping like tired eyes. A child once sang in that doorway. People said her voice could coax tears from stone. She died there, of course, how else would she linger? Lesser known truth. Some Victorians used to photograph their dead children as if they were merely sleeping, posed with toys or books, a keepsake of what they'd lost. And maybe that's why you think you hear a giggle now, quick and light. From the darkness within, your steps carry you toward an overgrown graveyard on the city's edge. The gates groan when you push them open, as if in warning. Inside, stones lean at odd angles, inscriptions eroded to whispers you cannot decipher. A shape moves among them, a woman in faded muslin, her face blurred by mist. She does not look at you. None of them do. They pass by, one after another, silent. Spectral commuters returning to nowhere. The air grows thicker, heavier, yet somehow tender. They are not here to frighten you. They are here to remind you that everything you've walked through, the filth, the hunger, the cruelty, the fleeting beauty has weight, and that weight never really leaves. You feel it settle around you, not like a shroud, but like a blanket. You close your eyes again, and then it begins. The lullaby rises low and soft, at first almost mistaken for wind in the grass. But it grows, weaving around you, warm as breath, cool as river mist. Hush now, hush, weary one. The streets are sleeping, the lights are dim. The day has ended, the world has grown thin. Each word wraps gently around you, drawing you inward. The voices are many men, women, children, each carrying a note of longing, of love left unfinished. You imagine them sitting beside you now, the girl with lavender perfume, the boy who laughed in the workhouse yard, the old man who built ships for a navy that forgot his name. They are all here, and they are all singing. Close your eyes. Let go of the grime. We will hold you through this time. No more hunger, no more pain, only rest, soft as rain. The melody slows, like a rocking cradle. You see less and less the gravestones blur, the fog fades, even the stars dim from view. You sink into it, deeper and deeper, until you can no longer tell where you end and the night begins. Their final words are barely whispers, but they stay. Sleep now, beloved stranger. The city is kind at last, and then there is nothing but the rhythm of your breath, steady, easy, gone. End of script. Sweet dreams.